That's an easy one. I was born and raised in the mountains of western North Carolina in a small town called Mars Hill, which is about 18 miles north of Asheville. And our county is called Madison County, and it's absolutely beautiful. It joins the mountains of Upper East Tennessee, and a big part of the Appalachian Trail actually runs through our county with some of the most beautiful vistas ever. I was born and raised on North Main Street, and that's where my parents still live. And I own the house right next door to them, which is formerly my grandmother's house. And so it's a beautiful place, and I love getting back every time I can. It's an interesting question and a bit of a journey that I came at backwards, not uncommon for me. I've always loved science, and that was my passion. So I pursued a biology major as an undergraduate and loved it. And I got my teaching certification in the state of North Carolina to teach secondary education biology as a plan B, as a backup plan in case a research path didn't pan out, because I was a little uncertain. I wasn't quite sure where it was going to take me. So I knew enough to know that I liked to pay my bills and I liked groceries. So I needed to have a way to earn a living. So teaching was a plan B for me initially, but once I started, I absolutely loved it and came back to it after I finished my Ph.D. at Johns Hopkins and recognized that what I was missing in my life that really filled my heart and that I really loved and enjoyed was teaching. And so that's what led me on a path toward academia and in particular teaching in higher education. And I've loved it ever since. It really is a calling, and it's a special, it's a special experience that you have with your students, particularly on a small campus like Hood, where you get to know them, you get to understand what motivates them and what brought them to your class. And it's just a privilege to be a small part of that journey with them as a teacher. I love it. Well, I like to garden, but I don't know that it's a secret talent, and I don't know that it's a talent all the time, but I think I have a pretty good green thumb. I have the ability to cut, trimmings off of things and clippings and get them to root. And sometimes it's things that you wouldn't think would be easy to root. Like, for example, Chris's family is from Louisiana, and it was at I think it was his mother's homestead that had these beautiful gardenia plants. And Chris's dad and his mom had this beautiful big gardenia plants growing on their back patio. They called the Arizona room for years, and it was beautiful. And I thought, this can't be the only one. So I would take clippings from it and root them. And I think at this point I've maybe rooted about a dozen of them that are flourishing at our house, at Chris's mom's house, at his sister's house. And I don't know, I think it's a little secret talent. Oh my gosh, you mean these? Yeah. Well, that's a tribute to my research, really, and I arrived at it in a very intriguing way. As I said, I'm from Mars Hill, and I always knew I wanted to be a biologist, and Mars Hill is really fortunate to be a college town, and Mars Hill University is my alma mater. That's where I got my biology degree, and we had to complete a senior thesis or a senior capstone project, and I had picked a topic that I had gotten really bored with, and I came across a picture of a quarter-horse mare that had given birth to a genetically pure zebra foal. And I knew enough about biology and horses to know that wasn't normal. But it led me down a path of understanding what zoos throughout the country were doing with assisted reproductive technology in taking genetically pure zebra eggs and zebra stallion sperm and fertilizing them in vitro, collecting the embryos, and then using domestic horses as gestational surrogates. And that changed my life because I had no idea that was even possible. And the impact of that on threatened and endangered species is something that really excited me. And so that led me on a journey to really want to understand more about reproduction and development, and particularly assisted reproductive technology and how that mechanism could be manipulated in an in vitro setting. And that led me to a place where I just fell in love with sperm and how they're made and what it takes to carve a genome of 46 chromosomes in half and then grow this outboard motor of a tail and streamline yourself so that you're mobile enough to swim to wherever the egg gets deposited, which is usually some far off distant location. They're amazing, amazing cells. And so I was interested in studying them and learning more about them. And it's still a passion for me, and it has become a bit of a novelty, if you will. So sperm bank, get it? Keychains, I have students make me things, paint things, it's a thing. But I try to be really sensitive and subtle about it. It's not, right, it's not pornographic in any way, but they're incredible cells. Any biologist needs a favorite cell, and that one's mine. Well, I've been interim president for about 9 months, and when I was invited to step into that interim role, I had asked the board chair, Tanya Fenton, who's a Hood alum, what the board's expectations were, because I wasn't interested in really just stepping into a role and filling a seat. Hood has come a long way. I've been fortunate to be the provost for 8 years, and we have accomplished a lot and have terrific momentum, and I had no interest in standing still and static and just waiting. This is an incredible institution. We've got a lot to be excited about and a lot of things to move forward. And so now as the interim comes off of my title, I remain excited about the forward trajectory of the college and our momentum and the passion and power of this community. It has always excited me and still does to this day. It sounds like a long time, but it will not be a long time. And there's a lot of work to do. I think we're most especially keenly focused now on some of the changes in what we call the higher education landscape writ large, and concerns about enrollment, concerns about finance, concerns about our programming and how we need to be responsive to a changing federal and statewide ecosystem that impacts all of us in the independent higher education sector. So in the coming year, I feel strongly that's going to continue to be my focus. Not just my focus, that's going to be the entire campus's focus as a community. And so in the first year, and really throughout my tenure as president, my hope is to continue to communicate openly and transparently with this community in a way that makes it clear to everyone what the critical issues are that I see on my dashboard, because I'm going to put them on the community's dashboard too. I can't do this work alone. This is our Hood College, and we've got to move forward together. And as president, I'll be at my best when I can mobilize all of us around some of those key initiatives and issues and priorities as a community, because that's when we're our strongest. Wow, that's a really good question. And I think, you reflect on your career trajectory, and while I'm not at the lab, at the bench with my lab coat and PPE doing experiments every day, I think from that experience, it has sharpened my ability and my quest to make data-informed decisions and not be afraid to hypothesis test or beta test. So I lean on that a lot. I'm a big fan of data, ask my team. And it may be qualitative or quantitative data, but we need to make our best decisions informed by what we know. And that may change and that may shift over time, but to the best extent we can, let data inform the decisions that we make. That to me leans on that scientific background that I have. Also love a good spreadsheet. Ask anyone, love me a good spreadsheet. I can get lost in it for days. So note to self, give me the PDF, not the Excel file or the pivot table. Yeah, that helps in my mind. I think if you could dissect it, that's how it looks, columns and rows. And so it's how I process, think, and organize things, but I think that leans on my scientific background. My favorite Hood tradition, hands down, is the Hood Hello. Big fan. I lead the Hood Hello every time I see a student, a guest, a neighbor walking their dog. The Hood Hello, above all else, is my favorite Hood tradition. You know, when I think back to my lived experience as a first-year student, very different, admittedly, because it was my hometown. I grew up on the campus. It wasn't unfamiliar to me. What was unfamiliar was the change in academic expectation, and how I learned and studied and prepared academically in high school was very different from how I needed to study and prepare and succeed academically in college. And so, you know, forging that gap was a bit of an initial challenge for me, and I see in my role as provost, it's also an initial challenge for some of our most accomplished first-year students. I would say the advice I would give them, among all the nuggets of good advice, is to give yourself grace. This is where you're learning new things and you're giving yourself the opportunity to explore new things. And as you do all of that, there will be times when you flourish and succeed and fly. And there will be times when you struggle, and that's okay, because that's learning as well, right? That's a part of learning, and to give yourself the grace to work through those challenges and maybe those failures and negative experiences in a way that on the other side, you can see them for the educational experience that they are, and the way that those are also equally part of a formative journey that's a Hood College education. Give yourself the grace. DebbieAtHood, yes, it's good, and that's thanks all to Mason and the incredible communications team that helped me set that up. What I really wanted to do as I started as interim president is to find a platform where the world could see all of the positive things that are happening at Hood College. And I know our website shares it, our current social media accounts and all the others that teams and organizations and departments have are places that they use to push messages and information out. But I felt, and I've learned this, the presidential platform and the megaphone you have as president is one that should never be taken for granted, and I hope never to do that. And I hope to use it for good, not evil, right? So I saw the Instagram page, DebbieAtHood, as a place where those moments, those little moments that happen every day on this campus could be celebrated and magnified to just authentically show all the great things about this community, about who we are, the mission that we're so proud of, and the students in the community that we serve. So that's what I've been trying to do. Mason didn't think I would get above 300 followers. I have 470 now. Just saying. Life's greatest passion, well, I haven't lived it all yet. But, you know, some of my passions are, of course, first and foremost, my family. Chris and the kids and our new granddaughter, Maddie, and my mom and dad, and Chris's family are passions for me. I love them all dearly. I love dogs dearly, have always had them my whole life. And I think I got that from my mom. She was the one that would bring home the stray dogs. And I would always be commiserating with her to bring in the stray pets to the house. But we've always had dogs and always loved dogs. And the more they need to be rescued, the better. I also have a passion for quilting. I like to sew, and I get that from my grandmothers, both of whom were sewists. My mom's mom, whose house I now own and Chris and I live in when we're in North Carolina, she would make my clothes as a young girl, and I loved sitting beside her at the sewing machine and just watching the rhythm of the needle going up and down and cutting out the paper patterns with her. And my dad's mom, she was more in kind of formal factory textile work, working for the former Banner House plant, that made the pocketbooks that had the wooden handles that you could attach to any of the cloth exterior bags and button them on. That was the thing when I was growing up. Well, she worked for the factory that made those cloth coverings, and she would save all the scraps and quilt them together. And some of my most beloved quilts are ones that she made using those scraps. And so I love to quilt because I think that's my connection to them. And I still get a calming sense of watching that needle just move up and down, and it centers me. I love making quilts, and I love giving them away to my team, so it's a passion. President Ricker say to 10-year-old Debbie? So 10-year-old Debbie would have been in the 5th grade with one of my favorite teachers in my whole academic trajectory, Miss Ruby Wallen. And she was fierce, and she was passionate about teaching. And I feel really grateful and blessed to have had that influence in my life. But Miss Wallen was a force to be reckoned with. And she taught us to be patriotic. She taught us to be passionate. She taught us to be empathetic. And I'm grateful for that. But all of that wrapped in the skin of a 10-year-old girl who's going through all of the insecurities and social challenges that you do, as you're emerging into middle school. What I would tell the 10-year-old Debbie is to hang on to those positive things, and the rest will work itself out. Right? All the insecurities that you had and many people still have, even as adults, really don't matter in the big scheme of things. That's what I would tell her. That's what I would tell her. Focus on the good things, focus on the positive, and focus on the things that really matter.